Hey guys, if you've been watching my videos for a while and you really like what I do and I've helped you out a lot, consider becoming a patron. Even for $1 per month, it pushes me to keep bringing you guys the best content I possibly can. There's reward tiers for discounts, free Udemy courses, personal support, and more. So check out the Patreon link in the description below for more info. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to a crash course on Next.js. In this video, we're going to discuss what Next is by looking at a couple slides, and then we're going to jump in and I'll show you how to get up and running with it, and then we're going to build a fairly simple application, and we'll even try to deploy it. So Next.js is a minimalistic framework created by Ziet, which they also created the Hyper Terminal as well as a bunch of other cool stuff. And it's used to render server-side React applications. So React, along with other frameworks like Angular and Vue.js, these are traditionally client-side frameworks and they run in the browser, but there are technologies for running these frameworks on the server side, and Next.js is a solution for running React applications server-side. It also makes React development very simple. It gives you a lot of stuff that is already set up that you don't have to do. Things like routing. So if you think of, let's say, a PHP application, it's simple. You create an about.php file and you upload it to your server, and you can automatically just go to your domain name and then /about.php. So using Next for routing is similar to how that works, except we're not using PHP, we're using JavaScript and React. So it's very convention over configuration, which is always good in my opinion. All right, so let's take a look at some of the core features of Next that come right out of the box. So we have server-rendered React apps. Obviously, that's kind of the purpose of the entire framework. It also has automatic code splitting and lazy loading, which gives you great performance because it basically prevents the loading of unnecessary code. If you have a module that's used in, let's say, half of your pages or more, then it's going to move to the main JavaScript bundle. If not, then it's going to stay inside the pages bundle, and this gives you a great performance boost. We also have very simple file-based routing. I briefly mentioned this with the PHP example. So you upload a page and you can access it with a URL. There's no need to map your routes, but for more complex situations, you do have the ability to map your routes. But if you want, for instance, an about page, then you simply create an about.js file and add it to a pages folder, and you can visit it in the URL right away. All right, so Next is also bundled with styled JSX, which gives you full scoped and friendly CSS support for JSX. It also gives you vendor prefixing. It has support for source maps, as well as plugins for pre-processing, and you're not limited to styled JSX. If you want to use styled components or something like that, you can, but this comes built in with Next. So we also have hot reload functionality, as it uses a Webpack based dev environment, so the server will auto reload after you save your code, which is always nice and speeds up development. And then deployment is extremely simple with Next. You can run the build command to build out your files, your static assets, and you can host your application anywhere. But you also have the option to use Ziet's Now hosting, which allows you to basically deploy your app with a single command. So no pre-configuration of a server or anything like that. So we'll look into that later as well. All right, now installation and setup is ridiculously easy. On the client side, when we had Create React app come out, it made things a lot easier than what we were doing with, manually configuring React with Webpack. Well, Next gives us that same ease of use. We simply install Next along with React and React DOM. Then we create a couple scripts. Basically, the dev script here is going to run Next, which will run our dev server. Build will run Next build, which will build out our files for deployment, and then start will just run Next. It'll run our application. All right, and then like I said, when we want to create a page, we can upload it to a folder called Pages. For instance, if we create an index.js file and just export a React component or a function, a JSX function, we can just visit our application / well, in this case, since it's index, it'll be the root. But if we did like about.js, we could go to /about. So it's as easy as that to get up and running. All right, so Next also ships with a link module to correctly navigate to your file-based or page-based routes. We just need to import it from Next link, and then we can use it like this. Okay, so we could use link, href, and we could wrap this around a standard A tag or a button or basically anything. So that's nice. And if we wanted to put like a class on this, we'd put it on the A tag, not on the link. All right, so enough with the slides. Let's go ahead and jump in and see what Next is all about. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you kind of an overview of some of the different features, and then at the end we're going to end up with an application that fetches Bitcoin data, pricing data from an API, and displays it in the interface. Okay, we're going to add Bootstrap. So I did want to do a crash course, but I also wanted to end up with a small application at the end, and then we'll look into deploying it with Now, which I've never done, so it's going to be a first for me. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, guys, so we're going to get started here. I have VS Code open in a blank folder called Bits Price. That's going to be the name of the application we create. Now, I'm not going to be explaining the fundamentals of React itself. I'm assuming that you guys know at least the basics of React. It's not going to be a hard React application. We're basically just going to send out an API request using fetch, get it back, and then display some data. But before we even start dealing with the API, we're going to look at some Next.js specific things like routing, the link module, creating layouts, stuff like that. Okay, so on the right here we have the Next.js GitHub page. Has a lot of good information, some pretty good documentation. Tells us how to get set up. We need to install Next, React, and React DOM. All right, so let's go down here and let's create a package.json file with npm init. I'm just going to do -y to accept all the defaults. So now we have our package.json file, and now we want to install those three things. So I'm going to clear this out and do npm install next react and react-dom. Okay, and if you're using under npm 5, which hopefully you're not, you need to do --save. All right, but it won't hurt anyways. Okay, so that's going to add those to our package.json file. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and add our scripts, which you can see right here. I'm going to get rid of the test script, and we're going to put in dev. Okay, so we'll do npm run dev, and that's going to run next dev. I'm sorry, just next. And then we want the build. So npm run build will run next build, which will build out our files for deployment. And then we also want the start script, which will be just next start. All right, so we'll save that, and that should be good for now. So we'll close that up. Now what we're going to do is create a folder called pages. Okay, and in this pages folder, let's create a file called index.js. So you can think of this as like our root page or our index page. All I'm going to put in here right now is export default and then a function, and I just want to set this to a div. And let's just say hello next.js, and that's it. Let's save, and now we should be able to run the server with npm run dev. Okay, so you'll see it's going to start, and it's going to tell us to go to localhost 3000, so let's do that. And there we go, hello Next.js. So it's as easy as that to get React up and running on the server. We just created a page called index.js. It automatically loads when we go to the index page. So if we wanted like an about page, we could create a file called about.js. And let's just grab that same thing we just put in here, except we'll change the text to about, and what was I going to call this? Bits prices, and save. And now I can simply go to /about, and there we go. Okay, and if I look at the source code, you'll see that we have our doc type, all that stuff is in there, everything that we need to run our server. Okay, and I'll show you how to change things and add things to the head and stuff like that in a little bit. But let's prepare these components a little better. So what I'm going to do is create a variable called index and set that to this, and then we'll go ahead and export index, okay, which is a little neater. And let's put this on a separate line. So we'll have our div, and let's actually wrap this in an H1. And I'm just going to change the text here. I'm going to change it to welcome to bits price. And we'll actually just put that on a separate line, save, and that should still work if we go back to our home page. All right, good. And then we'll do the same with about. So just go like that, change this to about, change that, and we'll just say about bits price, and let's just put a paragraph in here. We'll just say app or application to view Bitcoin prices. So we should be able to go to /about, and there we go. All right, so what about linking? What about being able to navigate between pages? So for that, we're going to use the link module. So I'm going to go to the index, and I'm going to import link from next/link. Okay, and then let's go right in this div. We'll put a UL and an LI, and inside this LI, I'm gonna put link href to /, and I want this to be a link, an A tag. So I'm gonna just put an A tag in here, but with no href, just like that. All right, and we'll say home. Now this could be a button. You could make this a button or even a div, anything. And let's go ahead and copy this down, and this will be for the about. So that'll be /about. And then what I'll do is copy this UL and then save the file, go to the about page and put that same thing right here. And now we can go, whoops, we need to bring in the link package to about as well. So that's from what? Next link. All right, so now we can navigate from page to page, and you can put as many pages as you want. Now the way that we have this, we're kind of going against the dry principle, the don't repeat yourself. We have this UL in both pages, and any page we create, we'd have to put it in as well. So what I'm going to do is create a Navbar component. So just like if you were creating a client-side React app, we're going to create a folder called components in the root, and I'm going to create a new file called navbar.js. Okay, and we'll just create, we'll say const navbar, and let's go down here and export default navbar. And by the way, you can use your classes if you want as well. I'm just doing these simple function components. The main prices component we're going to use to display our API data, that'll actually be a class. So I will show you that format as well. All right, so let's take the UL right here. We'll just kind of cut that out and put that in our navbar. And of course, we're going to have to bring in the link module here. Not const. Okay, and then what we can do is just now, instead of bringing in the link to our index, we're going to bring in the navbar component, which is in / components / navbar, and then we'll place that right here like that and save. Go to our home page and it still works. Okay, so let's do the same for the about. We're going to bring in the navbar and replace the UL. And let me just put that down. All right, so that works. Now just to make sure that it's coming from the navbar component, let's remove the about link and save, and you can see that about link's now gone. All right, good. All right, so now what I want to do is give you an example of style JSX and how to use CSS, which is just one way of doing it, but I want to show you it anyway. So in the navbar, what I'm going to do is go, this should actually be wrapped in a div. Okay, we want to use the div as our root element, and then right above that div, I'm going to put in a style tag. So I'm going to say style JSX, and we want to put in some curly braces and then end that style tag. And inside here we want to put some backticks, and then we can just put regular CSS. So I could put a UL, and we could say background. And I'm going to be getting rid of this because I'm going to bring in Bootstrap, but I just want to show you how we can use this. It's not going to be that pretty. We'll say display flex, and then we'll put in the LI. So for the LI, we'll just add a font size of 18, and let's add margin right 20, and then we'll do the A tag. And let's say text decoration none, and save, and there we go. So that's how we can use style JSX, and there's a lot more to it, but that's the basics. This UL is only going to pertain to a UL that's inside of this component. Okay, so if I were to go to my index page and put in a UL and save, you'll see it's not going to apply to that. Okay, so your CSS is component based, which is what you want. That's what seems to become that's becoming more popular, is to do away with the global CSS style sheets and keep everything inside of your components. All right, so you guys are probably wondering, well, what about layout? What about, if we want to have sidebars, and do we want to put a navbar in every single component? Shouldn't we have a layout? Well, that's pretty easy to do in Next. So what we can do is create a component for that. So I'm going to create a component called layout.js, and it doesn't have to be called layout. You can call it whatever you want. And then this is going to be set up just like a regular component. So we're going to we're actually going to bring in our navbar here, because that's where we're going to use it, instead of using it in every single component, or every single page, I should say. So navbar, and then let's do const layout equals. Okay, and this is actually going to take in props, and I'll show you why in a second. So in here we'll put a div. Let's make sure we export it. Export layout. Okay, and then inside here we're going to put our navbar, and then we're going to put this props.children. Okay, so this props.children, this is where whatever page we're on, the index or about or whatever page, this is where it's going to output. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. Now the way that we can apply this to our index and about pages is we want to bring it in. So we don't need the navbar anymore because that's in the layout, but we want to bring in the layout component. And then we want to get rid of the navbar and then wrap everything, even the root element, inside of layout tags like this. There's actually a couple different ways to bring your layout in. I think this is the easiest though. So we can just do that, and let's save it, and notice our home page looks the exact same. Okay, it's now using that layout. So let's do the same thing for the about. So we're just going to replace that and then get rid of the navbar and then just wrap this in layout. All right. So let's save that and go to about. So that works. And just to make sure, if we go to our layout and we get rid of the navbar and save, you can see that it's definitely using the layout. Now let's say you want to add something to the head area, which I do. I want to add a title. I also want to add bootstrap. I'm going to bring in the CDN. So what we can do is we can bring in, let's bring in head, and that's going to be from next/head. And then we're going to go ahead and put this inside the div. So right here we're going to say head, like that. And then anything we put inside here will get put in the head. So if I put a title, we'll give it the app name, which is bits price, and save. Now you'll see in the title it says bits price. All right, so let's bring in bootstrap. Now I'm going to bring in a customized version from Bootswatch just to make it look a little different. We'll use this first one, the cerulean. If I click download, I'm just going to grab the link right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and go and put a link tag in here and paste that in. So let's save that. Let's go to our application now, and you can see that it's changed. Okay, so bootstrap is now included, and it's going to be included on every page. Now if we took this head and we put it in just the about, then bootstrap would only be in effect on the about page. Okay, but I want it on every page, so that's why I put the layout inside the layout. So let's get rid of the ugly navbar we have here and use a bootstrap navbar. I basically just did this to show you how to use style.jsx, but I'm going to get rid of this now. And I'm actually going to get rid of everything in here, and I'm going to paste in a navbar. Now you guys can either copy this or you can get it from the code in the description. I just don't want to type all this out. Basically we just have a nav tag. We're using class name instead of class because that's how it goes in React. We're using a navbar dark class. MB4 is just a margin bottom for pushes stuff down. We have our brand, and then we have our two links which use the link module. So let's save that, and there we go. So now we can flip back from our navbar. Now one thing I do want to do is I don't want the content mashed up against the side, so let's go to our layout and just wrap the props children inside of a container. All right, so we'll go ahead and just bring this up here, and let's save that, and that pushes that over. All right, so now what I want to do is start to work on our call to the API. So this is the API we'll be using. It's called CoinDesk, which is a cryptocurrency news site, but they have this very simple API where you can make a request to this endpoint, and it'll give you the rate for Bitcoin for the US. You can see USD, GBP, and euros. You can also request other currencies, but we're going to work with these three because that's what's returned from this endpoint. All right, so what we're going to do is make the request in the index. Let me just close these up. We're going to make the request from the index component, and then we're going to pass the result into a new component called prices, and that's where we'll display our data. We'll add the state and stuff like that. The select list, we'll be able to change the currency and stuff like that. All right, so let's see. How do I want to do this? We're gonna need to bring in a new module. So I'm gonna open a new terminal down here, and we're gonna bring in isomorphic unfetch, which is a package that will allow us to use the fetch API on the client and the server. So to bring that in, let's say npm install, and it's called isomorphic, spell that right, isomorphic dash unfetch. And it has the same syntax as just your standard client-side fetch. All right, now let's see, that got added to the package.json, good. And then with Next, we have basically we have a lifecycle method called getInitialProps, and that's going to run right away, and that's where we want to make our request from. So let's first bring in fetch. So let's actually go up here and import fetch, and that's going to be from isomorphic dash unfetch. All right, so we're going to bring that in, and then we're going to go below our index here, and we're going to say index dot get initial props. And we're actually going to use async await here as well. So we're going to set this to async function. Keep this nice and modern. And we're going to fetch from our API. So we're going to create a result or a variable called res for our result. And we're going to set it to await fetch. And then in here we want to put our URL, which is this right here. So we're going to paste that in. All right, now when you use fetch, it returns a promise, and then you need to map it to JSON. So we need to actually do another await. So we're going to say const and get the data and say equals await res.json, like that. And then let's see, we're going to go down here and we're going to return, and we're going to put this in a value called BPI, and we can get data.bpi. Now what this BPI is coming from, if we look at the response we get, it's this right here, BPI, which has USD as a key. For all the USD stuff, it has GBP for a key and then EUR for a key. And you can get the rate, the current Bitcoin rate, the symbol, the code, and the description. All right, now we're just putting that entire BPI object into this right here, this BPI prop. Okay, so let's actually go up here, and we're going to have to bring in props. And what we'll do is we'll embed the prices component we're going to create right here, but let's make sure we can actually get the data. So for now, I'll just say props dot, let's see, how is this formatted? We can even get the date. So if we say props dot time dot updated, we should be able to get that. So time dot updated. It should be actually, I'm sorry, props.bpi .time.updated. Let's try that. We'll save it. Go to our application. Time, I can't get time of undefined, so props.bpi is undefined. Semicolon there. Updated of undefined. Oh, so it says cannot get property updated of undefined. Oh, you know what? It's because we're putting data.bpi into BPI. which is down here. So we can't get the time from that. Time is up here. So if I were to just use data right here, just to test it out and save, that should work. There we go. So we can get the time. All right. So we know that we're actually getting our response from the API. So let's put that back to BPI. And then what we're going to do is we're going to embed our prices component. I haven't created it yet, but I'm just going to put it in here. So prices, we're going to pass in BPI as a property, and we're going to set that to props.bpi, like that. Oops. Okay, so that'll have to be brought in. So that'll be called prices, and let's save. All right, so that's going to mess up because we don't even have that component yet, but let's create it. So we'll say prices.js. So this is actually going to be a class-based component. So we're going to say class prices extends react.component. We don't have to bring in React or anything like that with Next. It's just there. And we're going to create just an initial state that's going to have a currency, because we want this to be defined as USD by default, but we're going to be able to change it with a select list. All right, so we're going to have a render. And for now, let's see, we'll just render div, div. Let's see. No, what am I doing? Return. And let's just say prices. We'll just test it out. We'll go down here and we'll go say export default prices. Super expression must be either null or a function not undefined. Oh, you know what? I have this C should be uppercase here. There we go. All right, so the prices component is displaying here. Good. So we're passing in the props.bpi as a property to prices. So we have access to that. That's the response of this fetch right here. We have access to that inside this component, so we want to display it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a UL right here, and I'm going to give it a class of list group, which is a bootstrap class. And then let's put an li with the class of list group item. And inside here, let's say Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin rate 4. And then we should be able to access this .props.bpi because that's being passed in. And if we look at our response and we look in the BPI object, we have USD. So let's use that. So we'll say .usd, and then I want to get the description, okay, which right here is United States. So we'll say .description. So Bitcoin rate for, it should say United States. We'll put a colon, and then let's put in a little badge with USD because we can get that from the code right here, USD. So we'll put in a span, and we'll give it a class of badge and badge dash primary, make it blue. And then inside the span, let's put the code. So we'll say this dot props dot bpi dot usd dot code. All right, and then after the span, I'm going to put in a couple strong tags, and inside the strong I'll put the actual rate. So that'll be this dot props, let me just close the sidebar, make this a little bigger. This dot props dot bpi dot usd dot rate. All right, so let's save that, see what that gives us. And there we go, Bitcoin rate for United States dollar, USD, and then it gives us the current rate. All right, let's actually put a paragraph in the index right above the prices, and we'll just say check current Bitcoin rates, or rate. All right. So now what we want to do is we want a conditional, because we want to be able to check for GPB and euros as well. The default is USD. So we could probably do this a better way, but what I'm going to do is create a variable right here called list and set it to nothing. And then let's do a conditional underneath, and we'll say if this dot state dot currency is equal to USD. Now we're just getting into React stuff now. The crash course for Next is pretty much over. We're just finishing up the application, aside from deployment. So if it's equal to USD, and then let's do an else if, and let's see, we'll just grab this, and we'll say if it's equal to GPB or GBP, whatever. I always get that mixed up. And then we'll say else if it's equal to EUR. Then we're going to set list equals to, let me just grab this LI. I'm just going to cut this out and put it in here. And then I'm going to copy this whole list equals and then the LI. Let me just put that like that. And then we'll grab that, paste that in here. Okay, now for the GPB, I'm just going to replace these USDs like that. I don't like how this API, I wish that it returned an array. That would be a lot easier. We could just map through it, but it's just an object. So, oops, these should actually be euros. Like that. Okay, so let's save that. And down here we actually have to put in the list variable. All right, so USD. Now if I change this, the state variable to GPB, and save and reload, now it's GPB. If I change it to EUR and reload, now it's EUR. Good. So we obviously don't want to have to change it in the program, in the code here. We want to select list. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go down here, and let's go under the UL. We'll throw in a line break here, and let's put in a select. Give it a class of form control, and we don't need an ID or a name. What we do want in is an event. I'm going to put in an on-change event. And then we're just going to say, I'm just going to use an arrow function, do this the short way, and say this dot set state. And we want to set the currency to whatever the value. So e.target.value. All right, and now we just need some options in here. So let's say option, and for this value will be USD. All right, and save. All right, so now we should be able to, let's actually just reload this. Let's set this back to USD by default. And now if I go and I change to GPB, it changes. If I change to Euro, it changes. Good. So it's working. So nice little application. So I think that that's it, guys. I think that's all I want to do. We looked at quite a bit from Next.js, so routing, the link module, layouts, the head module, and then you can just build a React application. You don't have limitations. Even if you wanted to use Next.js to build like a static website and just have your pages inside your pages folder, you could do that. And then later on, if you wanted to add some dynamic functionality, you'd have React all set up and ready to go, and you could just throw in a React component. So I think it's a really cool technology. Now I'm actually not going to do the deployment because I actually paused the video and I looked into it and tried it out, and I ran into some issues. I think it might be a Windows thing, so we might look into that in a different video on deploying Next applications. So that's going to be it for now, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this little crash course in this application. I'll put the code in the description. I'll put the GitHub repository, and that's it. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you're not and you like this type of thing, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, I've just created a new Discord server that's open to the public. The goal is to have a place where people can go to help each other out for programming issues, as well as just a place to discuss new ideas and get feedback. I also check in daily. There's a channel to request videos on YouTube and much more. So if you want to check it out, just go to discord.gg/traversymedia.